What is going on, guys? It is a beautiful night. You guys are finally going to get to see what I've been doing in my office over the past couple of months. With this quarantine, that kind of speeded up the process of what was going on in there. When I first started the channel back up after moving into the new house, I was standing in this exact same place saying I have 2 snake rooms, but now that that one is nice and redone, we're going to finally get to check it out and see what I've been working on. So finally, and it's still not done yet, but finally have most of Vivarium set up that I want to. I felt comfortable with it, so I'm finally showing you guys what I've been working on for so long. Now, each one of these is what you call a living vivarium or bioactive setup. Every single one has plants and animals even in it. Even these little guys have a snake in it, which are for my baby snakes and plants. Now, I'm nowhere near done, don't get me wrong. I'm nowhere even close to being done because I still have to build another rack here for the baby snakes. I still have a couple more cages to get to fill in the small spots, and I'm actually even covering up all the hardwire that's gonna be on top, so you're not gonna see it. But I was comfortable with it, so I wanted to show you guys. So let's check out some of the tanks and see what's in them. So we're gonna start with this tank right here. This was the very first one I did. This was my trial and run error kind of thing. I did just the back wall on this one because I was gonna put the Crested Gecko in here. So he's living in here. Once I actually moved him in here, he almost tripled in size. Right before, or right when we moved in here, I did do a whole episode on him, on the Crested Gecko. Come here. Look how much bigger he's gotten. He's getting huge. I don't know if it's the bigger tank, all the natural stuff that's going on in here, but he's living the life. So go ahead and put him back, a little jumper. But yeah, so I started with this one. See, I just did the back wall. I have a type of Pothos there, a couple other tropical plants. I also have an orchid growing in here, trying to grow it onto a piece of bark here. Nice bromeliad, but something quick and simple for him. Nothing too crazy, but he's already ready to get another upgraded cage. So I'm probably gonna make him a bigger, better one now that he's grown so much since he's been in here. So this was the very first cage I did do to try this out. So in this tank, this is the second one I ever did. This originally was the cage that I had the squams in the old snake room. I wanted to move them into a bigger cage, so I figured I'll use this cage for something else. So I did start with this one. Now I have my white-lipped tree vipers in here, which is the female on the shirt that I'm wearing right here. So yeah, I started doing this one and I absolutely fell in love with it. I have different vines and a bromeliad, a natural looking water bowl in here, but the female is actually right up there and the male is down on the base of that vine over there. So this one's been growing in for quite some bit. The vine has grown nice and long. Now also in the dirt and the bedding of this enclosure, there's different types of bugs and organisms. If you saw my last video, moving the baby king cobra, I did talk a little bit about some of the different bugs that I have been using in cultivating and stuff like that. So they're a big part of the bioactive setup because they eat all the fecal matter and also all the decaying leaves and all that fun stuff. So this was the second one I did. Again, fell deeply in love with it. So of course, me being me, I had to keep going. All right, so now on to number 3. Now this one here, this was the third one I did, and this one was for the squams. So this is, as you can see, a little bit bigger. This is a 36 long by 18 deep by 18 tall Exoterra. Now, this cage right now has all 4 squams in it. When I get more cages this size, as time goes on, I will be taking the other 2 males out of here and just having the female in here with probably 1 male at a time. Now the reason why is so I can control who she breeds with as well. So in this one I have, again, bromeliads, a different type of vine. I have orchids growing, some more tropical plants, some ferns, all the bugs and lovely insects as well. Now this one by itself is on its own misting system, which you can see here. Also this big boy up here. Now the reason why this is on its own misting system, this particular cage by itself, is because squams are not from the area where all these other snakes are from. Squams are from Africa. Where these guys come from, it doesn't rain every day, or maybe twice a day. These guys, it rains pretty much every single day where they come from. If you actually spray squams more than necessary, you can actually kill them, believe it or not. The reason why is because they're not used to a high humidity. I have this set up so it sprays them once every 24 hours, but it only sprays them for about 30 seconds, so it's not all that much. Now, due to the fact that the plants in here are a little bit more tropical than that, I do spray the plants separately with my normal sprayer just so they can get a little bit more water than what the squams actually need. They do have a water bowl here as well because at night they are active, they like to move around, and they do drink water. They do drink off the spray sometimes, but the water bowl is always a good addition to have in there as well. So we're going to close this guy up. I don't want to bother any of these guys, and we're going to keep on moving. To do all these cages properly, it takes about 2 weeks. Now, even though all the chemicals and stuff that I do use for this are animal safe, the silicone still has to cure, which could take anywhere from 42 to 72 hours, depending on the weather outside. You know, to have the foam dry properly takes at least 24 hours, sometimes longer. There's so many different things that, you know, I've seen certain people online that literally build one of these cages, a smaller one, but build the cage in a day, which can be so bad and harmful to the animals that you're putting in that cage because the silicone could potentially kill them if it is not cured properly before you put that animal in there. I did build a couple of the small ones like these two here behind me in between building some of the other cages just because they were fast. They weren't as much work as the bigger ones, obviously, for some of the baby tree vipers. So like in this one I have the blue insularis, in this one I have the yellow eyelash viper, and another one that's sitting on my desk right now is the fancy pan viper, which shed, by the way. So happy he's finally growing. But yeah, so I do have one plant in each one of these. Some of them maybe have two, a succulent or something like that, again with a cute little water bowl in them. But I'm gonna actually be building something here to have two next to each other, probably, you know, 3 stacks of them for all the baby tree vipers. When I do get them, they're gonna have the same lights on them. They're all gonna have little misting systems and all that fun stuff. So the baby stuff will go here eventually. Again, not quite yet, but hopefully here soon. So I do have 2 very big cages that I haven't started to work on yet. I was waiting to film this episode for you guys before I start working on them, which one of them is currently a little nursery for extra plants that I do get to start growing those plants for future vivariums, which eventually will be these cages or maybe some others that I do get here shortly. But I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the lighting too. Again, I can go more in depth on these in the future if you guys want. This is just finally showing you guys what I've been working on here in the snake room. But yeah, so the lighting, the white lighting I have on right now is just a very simple plain white light, you know, used for filming or when I'm in here working, things like that. But on a timer right now, just because it is summertime, for 8 hours a day, I have a special light that is for plants, indoor plants on top of that. So it actually won't hurt the snake's eyes because that is a thing, believe it or not. It does not get too hot. I think it uses 14 watts of electricity, which is not bad. I probably said that wrong, but it's very, very low. It puts off absolutely almost no heat, which is a really good thing, and that's why I moved all the arboreal stuff here in the office, because you can't keep arboreal stuff in a room full of bigger snakes that take up a lot more heat and cause more heat due to the heat lights, because it will also kill them. So the lighting is very, very important. You can't use ones that you use in a fish tank because, again, those put off a lot more heat. They're also a lot brighter and they can cause the snakes to go blind. So very, very important, and I can't stress that enough. But I have these little plants right here. They're going to be growing here and probably going in one of these 2 vivariums when I do start it here in the next week or 2. Now these are not cheap projects. Every single one of these on average costs a little bit of money to make, depending on what you do with it. The last vivarium I'm going to show you guys is one I'm really proud of, and I'm so happy to finally have it done. But I have one more to show you before I show you that cage. So this is a cage I want to try, see how I liked it. I really like the landscape of the cage, but I don't like the shape of it for building these particular types of enclosures. In here right now I do have my Christmas gift from summer, which was the flat nose viper. He's actually kind of chilling in the back there. I really did like how this cage came out. I just don't like how, I guess you could say, how narrow it is. So I will actually be taking everything out of this cage. All the plants I can easily remove and move them into a different cage here shortly. But I'm going to leave him in there for right now with all these plants, so he does have a home. But all the other cages I'm going to do are going to be wider, so it makes it a little easier to do, and also a little easier to house too for right now. So definitely an interesting cage, but not going to be doing too much of these anymore. So this is the final product. Now, I want to explain something, and I can't stress this enough. This is 2 years in the making. I've been researching and getting facts checked and everything I possibly can for the past 2 years before I started this project, because I wanted to make sure everything was correct. So sorry, Summer just laughed at me, because it's true that I actually have been researching this very deeply. So I do want to say thank you to, and I hope I'm saying this correctly, Reptilius, I believe is his YouTube name. I saw a video of him making one of these vivariums a couple years ago, and that's what kickstarted this for me. He actually is a fan of my YouTube as well, as I am of him. We've talked quite a bit on Instagram, so I wanted to say a big thank you to him for this idea. I took little bits of his ideas and kind of made them my own. But without further ado, I know you guys are dying to see this cage, so let's jump into it. Now in this cage right now is the Pope's Tree Viper. Now, as most of you guys know, I did get this beautiful boy from Underground Reptiles. He's finally in shed. I'm so happy that he's finally in shed. He's gonna get rid of that skin he has, and you're gonna be able to see that beautiful blue sheen on him. Now, but in this cage for the plants and everything like that, I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different plants in this. I know that sounds crazy, but it's really not that bad. So right here, this big one that you see here is actually one that's been in my backyard for probably a little over a year now. This is actually a very big pitcher plant. So the predatory plants that you see on like Net Geo and stuff like that, this one gets pitchers about this big that hang from it. So I figured it'd be a cool one to hang in there. It does grow, so it can grow out across the cage. I also have a Pothos in here, which is gonna cover the bottom. Now this is part water, part land. Eventually I will put fish in here as well. Haven't gotten the fish yet, so not too worried about that. I also have I believe two different types of moss growing in here as well. You can see some of it's right here, some more of it's right here on the inside of this wood. I have another vine species right here. This one will actually cover the entire wall. I'm hoping, from the research I've done, all the plants that are in the enclosures with the snakes, most of them come from the area that the snake comes from. So this way I know they're not toxic to the snake, they can't harm the snake or anything like that. I do have an exception for some of the plants, but I've researched those plants to make sure they're not going to harm the animals, which is very important. I also have fake vines in some of the cages that you see here, which I actually made myself. Again, future videos I'll go more in depth on different stuff. And I do have this skull with the waterfall coming out of it, which I was so happy to do that finally. But yeah, cool little waterfall coming out of the skull. It also has a filter in it. Believe it or not your normal fish filter, but one of those reptile filters you can get for the turtles. So it does filter the water, so the water is constantly cleaned. So I was really happy to get this cage done and film it for you guys. As you can see, I already have a misting system hooked up to it. Again, I still have a lot of work to do in here. When I am done building all the cages, this is gonna have a cover that'll cover about half of these cages and up to about the lip here. This way you don't see any of the hard wire that goes into it, and it'll be a nice pleasant thing to look at as well. So I've actually been yelled at quite a few times because I've come in here and just stared at this cage. And this is one out of 3 big ones that I'm gonna be doing. I do have the babies here behind me. You can check those guys out. So let's see, I have the very young green spotted viper, purple maculatus. I have the older one is in here, he's underneath the paper towel. And then the Chinese bamboo viper, he is also in here. So I'm gonna be working on these cages for these guys next, here in the next week or 2. Also, finally, after months and months and months, over a year actually, of people asking me, we got a P.O. box, guys. So we got a P.O. box. It's in the description, the address for that P.O. box. If you guys do want to send us stuff, I know a lot of people have been wanting to send us stuff lately, so it is in the description. If you guys are interested in sending some stuff, I'm gonna check that P.O. box probably about once a week. And if you guys want, I can do videos on what some of the fans do send us here on the channel. We also got new merch out too, so definitely check the link in the description for that. We have one of the designs by Summer up in that as well. And I think that's gonna be it for this episode, guys. So hopefully you guys did enjoy it. Hopefully you enjoyed the wait for this, because again, I've been so excited about it. Finally being able to share this with you guys. If you follow me on Instagram, I've been kind of posting sneak peek stuff here and there. But yeah, big thank you to you guys for watching and being patient with me. I can resume feedings of these snakes in this room as well. Big thank you to my Patreons. You guys are fucking awesome. Remember guys, subscribe if you're not already. Smash that like button if you haven't already. And I really hope everybody's staying safe right now with all the craziness that's going off in the world. We will see you guys in the next video. Like always, bye!